Hey everyone, this is Aaron at Redbird Speed. Today I want to talk about ordering some narrowed C-clip axles for a mini truck rear, how to measure, or if you want to narrow your stock axles by aftermarket axles. I want to talk to you about a few things to look out for and why things are done the way that they are. So let's just jump right into this. So if you have a stock axle, one thing that you're going to have to be very careful about if you're going to send them in and have them resplined is right here on the axle. You need to be taking off enough material to get past this little taper in your stock axle. So you'll see where, like on a factory axle, they cold roll the splines in. So there's a little no man's land right here where if there's not enough meat to put your new spline and your new C-clip groove right up here, it's just not gonna be doable. So if there's not enough material there, they can't be narrowed. That's a problem. So you get a lot of money in shipping back and forth and something that can't be done. So definitely want to be cautious about that. So most of the aftermarket axles, they come straight out. So there is no taper there. They're cut to length, spline, C-clip groove button put on them. So that's something to be thinking about. So be cautious of that taper and a stock axle if you're going to narrow it. Usually that's about 3.5, 4 inches back till you get up into the meat of the shaft where they can be cut down, resplined, and a new button put on. Okay, so let's talk some dimensions. So when you're measuring these axles, one thing you need to be careful about is, are you measuring on the diagonal? So you're measuring from here to here? Or are you measuring on a parallel from outside of axle face to outside of the groove, like so? Because you get into all the high school geometry, a squared plus b squared equals c squared, Pythagorean theorem, all this. Long story short, it's going to throw off your axle measurement by about 1/8 of an inch, 3/16 of an inch. Those two numbers are not the same. The diagonal and the parallel dimension are not the same. So when that axle goes into a CNC cutter and is made to length, you got to make sure you got the right dimension or your brakes aren't going to line up. Because ultimately you put a C-clip axle in your rear end, goes up against the pin. I mean, it floats a little bit, but the length that you cut your axle, I mean, once you cut it, your stick out's it's determined. So you need to be very careful with this dimension on measuring the axle. So communicate that dimension with whoever you're talking to. Be very clear, it's on the diagonal, straight out like you're asking for it. Make sure you cover that. So that dimension, the total length from outside of face, so that's the wheel side out here to the tip, C dimension. Okay, so next, spline count. They got like S10s, like 26 spline, 28 spline, 30 spline. Just depends on what you're doing. There's, like 30 spline truck axles, 33 spline truck axles, different spline counts, different things going on there. So you need to count your splines, know what you're doing there. Next, the hub diameter. So this is on the end. So you want to order an axle, or if you're using your stock brakes and your stock axles, make sure the hub's going to fit your drum or fit the disc that you're going to be using. So whether that's like a 2771 S10 hub, 3060, Willwood hub, whatever you're doing, just make sure that the hub on the end of the axle fits what you're doing. That's going to be the A dimension. Again, if you're running a drum brake, not a big deal, but your flange diameter out here, total diameter, you need to make sure that's going to fit inside your hat of your rotor. So make sure that's going to go over it. So you need to have that dimension machined down to make sure when you go to slide your rotor on, it's going to fit over the face of that axle. If you're running a drum brake, not a big deal. It's not going to get in the way. If you're running a disc brake, it's something you need to be thinking about. That's going to be the flange OD. That's a J dimension. Next, bearing journal right here. So where the bearing is going to be riding on the axle right here, that dimension, that's going to be the H. So this can vary a lot. So like let's say S10, Like an S10s, a majority of S10s, two-wheel drive S10s, are going to be an inch 400. Get some of them oddball S10s. There's a few of them with an inch 618 journal, but not too often. Let's say like C10, Silverado. A lot of the majority of the half-ton trucks have an inch 618 journal, but I would recommend measuring it. An inch 618 journal. A lot of rear ends, like Explorer rears, people use those, narrow them up. They got good brakes on them. They've already got a posse in them, desirable gear ratio. So a lot of people will take like an Explorer rear, cut down along the side, and order 2 axles for the short side with a 4 3/4 pattern, put them in an S10 or something like that. Pretty desirable rear, so that's pretty common. Now there are some newer trucks like 3/4 ton trucks, like Hummers, some of these F-150s, 454 SS trucks. They did have a big inch 700 bearing journal, and that's pretty rare, but this is something new that just come out. These axles in the last couple of years are now available, so if you want to do a custom set for something like that, that's an option now. That's your journal. All right, so we got the overall length of the axle, we got the spline count, hub, flange, bolt pattern. Bolt pattern, now there are, these axles are blank, so you can get whatever drilled in them you want. If you're re-drilling it, or if you're going to cut down a stock axle, you already got your bolt pattern in there, not a big deal. If you're ordering new axles, you want to make sure that you can find wheels. If you're ordering some new wheels, you want to make sure that you can get them wheels in your factory bolt pattern, because oftentimes you end up in a situation where you got like a 5-on-5 or you got a 6-lug truck, and the only thing that you can find that you want might be in a 4 3/4 Chevy car bolt pattern. So when you're doing that, make sure you can find a desirable bolt pattern for the rim that you want to run. Stud size, like this is just going to depend on what you're doing. Again, like if you're running a Willwood or a Bear brake up front, most brake companies run a half 20 stud up front, so you probably want to put half 20 studs in the rear. If you're doing, maybe you're doing stock now and maybe you want to switch it in the future, maybe you want to do a second bolt pattern in that axle, and maybe you want to, you've got a 6-lug truck, put 2 bolt patterns in, one for your stock 14mm studs, and maybe one of them drilled and tapped for a half 20 studs. So if you put some Willwood brakes up front and want to doing some screw in half 20s in the rear, screw a set in, you're back, you got half 20 all the way around now. So that's going to be an option also. So we've covered some talk about the overall length, measuring on the parallel versus diagonal, or making sure you communicate what you're doing there. Spline count, hub, flange, bearing journal, bolt pattern, stud size. If you have any questions about any of this, ordering C-clip axles, and most mini truckers, they're going to be using C-clip axles. Majority of the time, you don't have so much power that you're breaking these. But if you want to talk about some bolt-in style axles, we can do that too. We've covered a little bit of ground talking about mini truck axles. If you have any questions, give me a call, 260-301-2424. Get us on our website. You can message us on there. You can email us. Drop us a comment on here. Be sure to give us a subscribe. We talk about a lot of diff stuff, housings, axles, differential parts, brakes, suspension. So give us a ring if you want to talk. We appreciate your support. Have a good day.